The judgment falls. Ambassador Elena Vasquez stood in the center of the massive crystalline chamber, her hands steady despite the weight of humanity's future resting on her shoulders. Above her, arranged in a perfect spiral that seemed to reach into infinity, sat the representatives of 63 alien civilizations. The Cosmic Assembly had convened for what would be remembered as the darkest day in human history. The chamber itself was a marvel of engineering that dwarfed any structure on Earth. Walls of living crystal pulsed with bioluminescent patterns, translating the complex languages and emotions of dozens of species into something Elena could understand. She had stood in this same spot for 3 years as Earth's ambassador, believing that humanity had found its place among the stars. Today, she would learn how wrong she had been. High Arbiter Zethkol dominated the center of the spiral assembly. The creature resembled a massive tree made of silver metal, with hundreds of sensor pods extending from its trunk like branches. When it spoke, its voice resonated through every crystal in the chamber, creating harmonics that made Elena's bones vibrate. The matter before this assembly is the continued membership of species designation human in galactic civilization, Zethkol announced. After extensive deliberation, observation, and analysis, a decision has been reached. Elena felt her heart pounding as she looked up at the alien faces surrounding her. Some species she had worked with for years, others she barely knew. The Kilari delegation, with their bird-like features and colorful plumage, would not meet her eyes. The mechanical Centauri collective hummed with unusual frequency patterns that their translator marked as distress. Even the aquatic depths-dwellers, floating in their environmental suits, seemed agitated. The human species, Zethkol continued, has been classified as evolutionarily unstable and fundamentally incompatible with peaceful galactic civilization. The words hit Elena like a physical blow. She had prepared for many possible outcomes, but not this. Not complete rejection. This classification is unprecedented, Elena said, finding her voice. Humans have contributed to galactic science, defended member worlds, and followed all assembly protocols. What evidence supports such an extreme judgment? The chamber filled with alien sounds as dozens of species began speaking at once. The crystal walls flickered rapidly as they processed multiple languages simultaneously. Finally, Zethkol raised several of its metallic branches, and silence returned. The evidence is substantial, the High Arbiter replied. In the 37 years since first contact, humans have been involved in 16 military conflicts, developed 17 new classes of weapons technology, and expanded to 42 star systems at a rate that exceeds assembly guidelines by 400%. Those conflicts were defensive actions, Elena protested. Human colonies were attacked by raiders and pirates. We defended ourselves and other species when the Assembly's peacekeeping forces were unable to respond. A new voice entered the conversation. Commander Yilmoth of the Hegemony military forces floated forward in his powered armor. The creature inside looked like a cross between an octopus and a knight, with gleaming tentacles emerging from articulated metal plating. Your defensive actions included the development of planetary bombardment weapons, Yilmoth stated. Your expansion rate suggests an appetite for conquest that threatens the stability of established borders. Your species shows signs of what our xenopsychologists term aggressive expansionism, coupled with technological innovation beyond safe parameters. Elena looked around the chamber, searching for any sign of support. The Kilari representative, Ambassador Cherithkol, finally looked up. Elena had worked closely with her on trade agreements and cultural exchange programs. Surely she would speak for humanity. The Kilari Republic, Cherithkol said in her melodic voice, abstains from this judgment. We acknowledge positive interactions with humans, but cannot ignore the concerning patterns identified by the Assembly's investigation. Elena felt her last hope crumble. Even their closest allies were abandoning them. The judgment of this Assembly is final, Zethkol announced. All human colonies beyond your home system must be evacuated within 90 standard days. All trade agreements with human worlds are hereby terminated. All technology sharing programs are suspended immediately. The High Arbiter paused, and Alina sensed this was not the end of the announcement. Furthermore, a quarantine protocol will be established around your solar system. Any human vessel attempting to leave your home system after protocol activation will be destroyed. This measure is necessary for the protection of galactic civilization. The chamber erupted in alien voices. Some species sounded shocked at the severity of the punishment. Others seemed pleased. Alina stood in the center of it all, feeling numb. Humanity was not just being expelled from galactic civilization. They were being imprisoned in their own solar system. "You are making a mistake," Alina said, her voice carrying clearly through the chaos. "Humanity has contributed more to galactic science and defense in 37 years than some species have in centuries. We are not the threat you believe us to be." "That determination is no longer yours to make," Zethkol replied. "The evacuation period begins immediately. You have 90 days to bring all humans home." Alina activated her communication device as she walked toward the chamber's exit. The quantum link to Earth would take several minutes to establish across interstellar distances, but she needed to warn them immediately. Behind her, the representatives of 63 alien civilizations continued their discussions about humanity's fate, as if humans were no longer worth addressing directly. As her ship departed the assembly station, Alina looked back at the massive structure that had been humanity's gateway to the galaxy. The station was built from the combined technologies of dozens of species, a monument to cooperation and peaceful coexistence. Now it felt like a prison wall being built around her entire species. The communication link finally connected, and President Marcus Chen's face appeared on her screen. He was a tall man with graying hair and kind eyes that had seen humanity through its first steps into space. Those eyes now filled with concern as he saw Alina's expression. "How bad is it?" he asked without preamble. "Complete exile," Alina replied. 90 days to evacuate every human colony. A permanent quarantine around the solar system." Marcus closed his eyes and took a deep breath. Behind him, Alina could see the crisis management team gathering in the situation room. The weight of coordinating the largest evacuation in human history was about to fall on their shoulders. "Any hope of appeal or negotiation?" Marcus asked. "None. The decision is final." Alina paused, then added, "Marcus, they're not just afraid of what we've done. They're afraid of what we might become." President Chen nodded slowly. "Then maybe it's time we found out what that is." The Great Withdrawal. The emergency session of the United Earth Assembly convened within hours of Alina's report. Representatives from every nation and every human colony gathered in the Great Hall in Geneva, their faces reflecting the shock and anger of an entire species. President Marcus Chen stood at the podium, looking out at the assembled delegates who would have to coordinate the greatest logistical challenge in human history. "Ladies and gentlemen," Marcus began, "we have 90 days to evacuate 12 million people from 42 star systems. This is not just an evacuation. It's the complete withdrawal of human civilization from the galaxy." The hall erupted in voices. Some delegates demanded immediate military action. Others called for diplomatic appeals. A few suggested compliance and isolation. Marcus raised his hand for silence. "Before we discuss our response, let's understand what we're facing. Dr. Sarah Kim, please brief the assembly on the quarantine protocol." Dr. Kim stepped forward to the podium. She was a brilliant woman in her 50s who had spent her career studying alien technology and physics. Her team had been analyzing the assembly's ultimatum since Alina's transmission arrived. "The quarantine protocol involves the deployment of what they call a containment field around our solar system," Dr. Kim explained. "Based on our analysis of similar technologies we've encountered, this field will be virtually impenetrable to any ship using current human or known alien propulsion systems." A delegate from the Mars colony stood up. "Are we talking about a complete blockade?" "More than that," Dr. Kim replied. "The field will be self-sustaining and actively hostile to human technology. Any ship that approaches it will be automatically destroyed. The aliens aren't just locking us in. They're making sure we can never leave. The weight of this information settled over the assembly like a blanket. Humanity was not just being exiled. They were being permanently contained. Captain Jake Rodriguez, commander of the scout ship ESV Pioneer, requested permission to speak. He was a young officer who had spent the last 5 years mapping unexplored systems beyond human space. His ship was currently stationed at the edge of human territory. "Mr. President," Jake said, "my ship is in the Kepler 442 system, approximately 47 light-years from Earth. We've been conducting deep space reconnaissance beyond our established colonies. If we begin moving now, we might be able to establish supply caches and hidden outposts before the quarantine field is activated." President Chen considered this. "You're suggesting we prepare for the possibility of breaking quarantine." "I'm suggesting we prepare for every possibility," Jake replied. "The aliens think they know what humans are capable of. They might be underestimating us." Dr. Maya Patel, the Earth's chief xenobiologist, stood to address the assembly. She had spent years studying alien psychology and culture, trying to understand how other species thought and behaved. "The assembly's decision reveals something important," Maya said. "They're not acting out of anger or punishment. They're acting out of fear. In their analysis, humans represent an existential threat to their established order. The question we need to ask is, why?" Colonel David Torres, head of Earth's Military Space Command, had been studying the tactical implications of the quarantine. He was a career soldier who had fought in 3 different colonial conflicts, always defending human settlements against raiders and hostile forces. "Man, with respect, the why doesn't matter right now," David said. "What matters is that they've declared themselves our enemies. They're forcing 12 million of our people to abandon their homes and livelihoods. They're trying to cage our entire species. The appropriate response is clear." "Which is?" President Chen asked. "We fight," David replied simply. "We evacuate who we can, hide who we can't, and prepare for war." The assembly hall buzzed with conversation as delegates debated the merits of resistance versus compliance. Finally, Tom Anderson, a civilian leader representing the displaced colonists, requested the floor. "I speak for the families in the outer colonies," Tom said. "We've spent generations building lives on worlds light years from Earth. We've raised children who've never seen a sunrise on their home planet. Now you're asking us to abandon everything and start over." Tom paused, looking around the hall at the faces of delegates who would decide his people's fate. "But here's what I want you to understand," he continued. "We didn't build those colonies by asking permission from aliens. We built them with human sweat, human ingenuity, and human determination. If they think putting up a wall around our solar system will stop us from reaching the stars, they don't understand what humans are made of." The applause that followed Tom's words seemed to shift something in the room. The mood changed from despair to defiance. President Chen made his decision. "Dr. Kim, I want you to begin immediate analysis of every piece of alien technology we've acquired through trade or salvage. Colonel Torres, coordinate with Captain Rodriguez to establish contingency supply points in systems beyond the quarantine zone. Captain Rodriguez, your ship is now operating under deep reconnaissance protocols. Maintain communication silence and avoid detection." He turned to address the full assembly. "Ladies and gentlemen, we are about to attempt something no species in galactic history has ever done. We are going to evacuate our colonies, comply with the assembly's ultimatum, and then break free from their containment to reclaim our place in the galaxy." Dr. Kim raised her hand. "Mr. President, breaking through an alien containment field will require technological capabilities we don't currently possess." Marcus smiled for the first time since receiving Elena's report. "Then we better get started developing them. How long do we have?" 90 days for evacuation, then an unknown period before the quarantine field is fully operational," Dr. Kim replied. "Then we have 90 days to become the species the aliens are afraid we already are," Marcus declared. As the assembly session ended, delegates rushed to coordinate the massive undertaking ahead of them. Evacuation ships would need to be organized, colonial equipment salvaged, and millions of people relocated. But beneath the chaos of logistics, a deeper current was flowing through human civilization. For the first time in decades, humanity was united by a common threat and a common purpose. The aliens had intended to contain and diminish human potential. Instead, they had created the conditions for humanity to discover exactly how far that potential could reach. In the depths of the asteroid belt, construction crews were already breaking ground on what would become known as Fortress Sol, a massive industrial complex that would serve as the foundation for humanity's technological revolution. On distant worlds, human colonists began the heartbreaking process of abandoning their homes while secretly catching supplies and equipment for a future return. And in the cold depths of space, Captain Jake Rodriguez guided his ship toward uncharted systems, carrying the hopes of an entire species toward an uncertain but defiant future. The Great Withdrawal had begun, but it would not be humanity's final chapter in the galaxy. It would be the beginning of their transformation from refugees into the most formidable force the cosmos had ever seen.